So we're recording now. So welcome everybody. I don't know lots of the faces here, which is very thrilling, and it's really nice to see the faces I do recognize. So I'm really excited. I hope I manage this screen because there's a lot of faces here. I thought it'd be nice to give a little bit of an introduction to Relationship Ready, which really is a passion project for Susan and I working together. It's something, whenever we do a program, we never want to hang up the call because we just are really in love with doing this work. And it really ticks our boxes, if you like. And I thought it'd be just nice for you to know a little bit about, us, a little bit about, what we do, why we do it. And then we want to have a very, quite an informal discussion with some people we've invited that have worked with us to share, just to sort of talk about some topics around relationships and dating, because we're really inspired by them and what we see people discover about themselves. And it always propels us to want to keep going because we learn fresh for ourselves just by working with people, if that makes sense. So the inspiration really doesn't go back, from when I started doing this work, working with people, to sort of see how thought was essentially creating an atmosphere for everything they saw and felt, and how when we have different thoughts, we have different perceptions. And when we have limiting, disturbed thoughts, we have limiting options for what we see in the world. And when we're kind of out of that and in a freer mind, the world opens up and we literally see what's under our nose that wasn't there before. And that's so relevant to dating. And you're going to hear some really fun reflections on that, because that's often quite a common reflection we hear from our clients is like, oh, that was under my nose and I didn't even think of that. And it feels obvious. So the inspiration really goes back, really, for me, being when I was in college. I had a lot of very sassy, attractive single friends. And this is when the internet dating was actually had started being a thing. This is in the 90s. I don't know how many of you were born in the 90s. I have to say that now, but but it wasn't something that people were using. And I was in fashion and I was doing an MA with a lot of very capable, driven, ambitious people. And most of the people on my course were single. A sprinkle of them were happily single, but most of them were kind of at the point they were sort of thinking, yeah, okay, I've dated a lot now. I'd really like to kind of have someone at the end of the evening to sort of snuggle down and tell them about my day or what, just to kind of, I want something a bit more steady now. And I remember looking and being very confused because they were all so interesting and bubbly. We lived in London. So we were going out to bars, we were going to clubs. It's not like we weren't going out. They were ambitious. So we were on an MA, which meant that people were very skilled at what they did. They were really clear about what they wanted to do. And I was just totally like, oh, it must be to do with not meeting enough people, that they can't, that it's not kind of going easily. And I just was a bit confused by it because there was like nothing that made sense to me, given that everything about them made in my mind them really attractive, interesting, like a catch. Basically, I just thought these people are a catch. What the hell? So it must be that we're all in fashion and we're in a small crowd and it's a small pond. Most of the women that were on my course were straight or a little bit curious, but were not wildly experimenting. And pretty much all of the guys were gay. So you're not really cross dating within the course. Whereas before, when I'd done art or fine art, people would date much more, because people were just dating. I don't know how it'd be now. I'm sure people are a lot more sort of open now. I don't know, but that's kind of what it was like back then. And then when I moved to America, so then I moved to a town in America of 800 people from London. So it was sort of deafeningly quiet. And there was lots of gingham and muffins. There was like muffins and gingham, and it was very quiet. And my husband, I was going to say at the time, he still is, was working with a lot of couples. So he was working with many, many couples that were on the brink of divorce. So a lot of the couples he was working with had tried many things to help their marriage. I think a lot of the stories, because I would go out to dinner with him and meet them, they'd tried everything. And they'd been unhappy for years. And often where they were trying, it was the last pit stop. It's like, all right, I'll try this weird thing in this little town. It's supposed to give you good results. I don't really get what it is. And they would turn around marriages in 4 days. And it sounds annoying. It sounds like abs in 3 minutes, but people would go from feeling disturbed, upset, hopeless, frustrated. They'd tried going into their issues over and over and over again, and it did nothing for them for the previous approaches they'd tried. So when they came to work with my husband or any of his colleagues, they would soften and start to get fresh thought about what felt like 4 days ago a very old situation. And they would soften and open and start to resolve their marriages and their relationships from the inside without being given advice. Like, what the hell? Like, how can you solve something without someone telling you how to do it or giving you a tool or laying it out in a map of what you're supposed to do? They would just, every single person who came would start to get their own answers about what to do. And I remember thinking at the time, why didn't you help them when they were hurting earlier on in the relationship? Like, what if you helped someone the first week they got married? If you wait, people are going to be happy. They get over their honeymoon period, they suffer, and then they suffer for a long time. Then they look for help, and then whether they get it or not. But if you can help them in 4 days, why not save them the suffering earlier on? And then I started to see that there was thought that was making relationships hard were also making getting into a relationship harder than it needed to be. I'm not going to go on too much further from here because I would really want Susan to talk a little bit about her. But what I've really brought to this program is very different from Susan. So I've been married and with Aaron for 27 years, but I've probably been married and divorced at least, and I've probably been in like 18 different relationships within those 27 years, because for me it's not been one continual relationship. It's been adapting and evolving and coming back at it fresh, to figure out how to be more connected and less in my head. And I'm really grateful. It was 8 years ago roughly that I started to look more at my own mind and my own accountability for how I thought / projected onto our relationship. And the most surprising thing that happened was that innocence started to come into my feeling between Aaron and I that hadn't even been there when I was 21. I hadn't felt innocent and okay getting over things. When I was 21, I thought the whole idea was that you just were aiming to not be taken advantage of. So I was kind of walking around with a lot of dating armor, and I really liked Aaron, but I was on high alert, kind of like having allergies, and everything makes you allergic. And it's shocking to me that you can be, 18 years in and discover innocence and softness and warmth and tenderness. And not living in my head with him meant generosity came more naturally. Connection, my heart would fill up. Be doing nice things for him wouldn't feel resentful. It would feel loving. And so things have really, really changed since I've started looking at how my mind is affecting how things look out there, how things look in here for me. Susan, I'd love you to give a little, not little, I'd love to give an intro to you and share a little bit about you and what drives you being here. And yeah. So Susan she's been from the very beginning, senior facilitator alongside me at Relationship Ready, and she's amazing.
Thank you, Leela. I loved your talk. I wanted to know whether muffins and gingham were euphemisms for something.
Ooh, depends on who you ask.
They sound so wrong. So I do this program and show up to this program because for me life got a lot easier when I got to understand these principles. But this area for me was just really, really difficult and sticky, and it had been I was one of these people that didn't kind of grow up dreaming about kind of a marriage, or what dress I'd wear, or, you know, what carriage I'd go in. You know, I wasn't sort of dreaming of being Cinderella, but I really always wanted to have a meaningful, soulful connection with somebody where I felt comfortable and loved. I mean, that's what I really, really yearned for. You know, Lily, you said you felt like you've been kind of married to Aaron kind of 18 times. And I was thinking I probably had about 18 relationships. I mean, I haven't counted them up, but different ones, not all with one person. But I just kept finding this area of my life really, really difficult. And the only thing I could really think to do about that was two things. I kind of would constantly think about it and try and work out how to do better, and all the things that were kind of was wrong with me. And I'd also go on like courses where I would learn different things to try and feel more, you know, whatever little thing I thought was wrong with me, you know, maybe a course about dealing with shame, or a course about intimacy, or a course about learning to love yourself, or, you know, whatever they were. I did a ton of them. And this was all sort of in my search to kind of get myself ready to be in a position where maybe I could have that kind of love that I longed for. And so that kind of went on for years. I had a marriage for 13 years. Much of it was very unhappy. But I was anyway, we'll not go too into that. But then I had other different relationships, and up until about 6 or 7 years ago, I came across the principles about 9 years ago. And up until sort of 6, 7 years ago, I was still very much in this story. Although my relationships had been improving, they were still not what I was looking for. And, you know, one of my lasting sort of memories, apart from sort of feeling worry and pain and hurt, was I was always in the other person's head all the time. I was always wondering what they were thinking, wondering what they were thinking about me, wondering what they were thinking about the relationship, always kind of fearing that I was about to be chucked. That was the thing that went in my head a lot of the time. Like, you know, when are they gonna, you know, kind of brace yourself, brace position. Went around in the relationship with my head between my knees now. But I make light of it, and it is funny talking about it now, but it wasn't so funny back then. And so yeah, I kind of found it very hard to keep out of my own head, and very hard to keep out of their head. So that left very little time to be just showing up to the relationship and enjoying it. So anyway, when I did finally see something about this particular area, because for me, although I had a lot of freedom in a lot of other areas of my life, when I came across this understanding, this area was definitely a real sticky area for me. And anyway, I did start to get some freedom, and lo and behold, the whole thing completely turned on its head. And it went from very, very difficult and very complicated and very hard work, and, you know, with that kind of feeling of like really wanting a relationship, but at the same time, did I really want to have a relationship? It felt like it would have to be so full of compromise, and so full of kind of showing up in a way that I thought I needed to show up. And it was just hard work. And I used to think about, you know, I did want one, but it also felt like having one was going to be pretty hard work. Anyway, jump forward to 2021, wherever we are right now, and I've been in a relationship for for 5.5 years now with my current partner, who's now my husband, and from simply seeing something, which is just it feels like a miracle, and it really does feel like a miracle every single day. It has gone. My relationship now is very easy and compatible, and I just see the whole thing in a really, really different way, and I really see how it's all coming from me, and it's up to me how I am, or how I show up, or how much enjoyment I have, or how much love I experience, or how much closeness we have. It's like it's a very different way of looking at a relationship to the way I used to. And because of that, I have a much different experience of relationship than I used to. So that's kind of a little bit about me. And I also don't want to take up too much time, because it will be great to hear from some of the people who've been through the program and what their experiences are. But it's so lovely to see you all here.
I thought I would be lovely. I'm going to give a very just brief introduction to the people who are going to be kind of sharing a little bit, and then we're going to kind of have a discussion together with them, and we're going to kind of discuss some topics. But I wanted to just kind of give you a very brief, do you mind, all guys, if I give you my version of an intro to you and where you are? Is that okay? Raise your hand if that's not okay. So I'm going to start with the top of my screen. So Chetna is I call her a high-flying lawyer. She's actually very, very competent at her job, and is also a coach. And she lives not far from me, actually. And I'm really glad you're here. Thank you so much for coming. Just below her, I have lovely Colette. So Colette, I'll call you my property mogul, but is now full-time coaching business. So she kind of, so Colette has just got such a good story, because when she started out, you know, there just weren't, I think from your experience, there just weren't really women in your industry. You know, so she's been a real trailblazer for not overthinking it, essentially. If there were glass ceilings, she's totally ignored them. So, Colette works and lives in Scotland, so north of here, anybody who isn't in England. And then further down, I have Julia. I can see, is that a cat? Yes, I can see the kitty cat. Hey, baby. And so Julia used to live in London, and now has ran away to the sort of the countryside with her hubby. And so Julia, the way I was thinking about it earlier, you help businesses grow. You give them advice on structures and how to grow. And we have clients who have worked with her, just fantastic. She really breaks it down and helps people with strategy on how to grow. And she's also teaching this work now as well. It's really impacted her, so she's also teaching. God, people just moved around now, and I got a bit seasick. So Katie, the one with the beautiful view in the trees. Everybody wants to go visit wherever that is. So Katie is I don't think it's right to say you're not a financial advisor, is that right?
Yeah, in training, so to speak.
Okay, yeah. And Katie, I'm sure, has had like 7 careers already. So she literally has trained in lots of things and does it to the highest level. She's ridiculous. She's so clever. I met her through writing, and she's just brilliant. And she's in the US. And then we have Barb over here on the top. Well, she's in my top right corner. So Barb, if anyone's been to Portland, if you've been watching the news, you've seen Portland a lot recently. So she's in sort of the West Coast of America, and she has come from a corporate background. She was in corporate many years, and has essentially brought her knowledge of that into teaching the 3 principles globally, and never misses a beat, and works really, really hard, and is very fun to hang out with. That's my intro for Bob. Who am I missing now? And there we go. Reese. So see, people moved around. So Reese, I think of you as living in London, but you don't. You're kind of a tiny bit out. You're not really out of London, are you, Reese? Okay, so Reese is brilliant. She's a marketing strategist. You're an events manager. Events, that doesn't quite cut it though. I mean, I get the sense when I talk to you about your job, everything lands on your shoulders. So could you say sort of events badass? I don't know what you would call that, but she's up to the wazoo in organizational skills and very competent. And during lockdown, so as that's kind of halted, she's just decided to set up her own business, making I think you should share it somehow, but she's doing the most beautiful homemade candles subscription service. And I just think it's brilliant. So she hasn't kind of wasted any of her creative energy during lockdown. She's doing something really brilliant. Who am I missing? I'm looking on my screen here.
Julia.
Yeah, I think I gave intro to Julia. Who am I missing? Anyone
Sorry.
else? No, someone who was going to come had their floor collapse, so they're dealing with that instead. So anyway, and I wanted to start off by kind of really just having a discussion with the group of guest speakers here. So I've got an icebreaker question. I don't know if anybody listens to The Secret Life of Teachers. It's a podcast. I highly recommend it. It's super funny and gives you a little glimpse into basically how passionate and hardworking teachers are, but also I think quite how funny they are. My sister, who's on the call, is a teacher. I hear a little bit from her, but it's brilliant. But she has this what's called a starter activity, like you do when you go into school, which I think is brilliant. So my starter question for the group, and I love that she does this, so you guys can just chirp in what you think. What is the first word that comes to mind when I say internet dating? So this is to the panel of guest speakers.
Is that the first word pre-course or after course?
Both.
Pre-course nightmare and probably completed it. And then after, excitement and freedom.
Yeah. Now, how did you so Risa, you're one of those people that doesn't have a problem just getting out. You're very bubbly and you go on dates a lot. Like that isn't something that you have struggled. But if it was a nightmare, did that make it mean that it was kind of unfun as an experience?
I think like what you said earlier with you had your dating armor because you'd had so many bad experiences. You started to turn up to all these dates already with a preconceived conception of how it was going to go. And I probably approached so many of them like that. So in my mind, I was in the wrong mindset when I was turning up. I was doing all the work to go. So for me, I think it turned around after I did the course because I learned more about myself and what I was doing wrong. And I actually haven't been on any dates since because we've been in lockdown. But I found that I was turning up in the wrong place and it was probably all me, not necessarily them. I took the fun out of it.
I think were we out of lockdown for like a minute? I think you went on a couple of dates before lockdown that were kind of different.
Yeah. Gosh, it feels like so long ago. It was
at least 7 years ago, I'm pretty sure.
A very long time ago. Yeah, I think some of the things that I learned on the course, I was able to apply to my everyday life, not necessarily just my dating. So for me, it managed to change a lot of things on a day-to-day basis, just even how I was as a person, understanding myself, trying new things. I'm a very controlling person with myself, and I'll never forget Layla's famous words of, if you never try a new dish, you'll never have a different culinary experience. So you've got to just keep trying different things. And it just taught me a load of different things, the course. So
yeah, it's brilliant. Brilliant. What about the rest of you guys? Internet dating. What was the first word that comes to your mind? It can be hideous. Oh, Barb's got one.
Mine is it's more of a sound effect than horror. I would say pre-course it was no, pretty much, and post-course that big sigh may not feel like progress, but in a way it is. You know, I fall in the category where I'm still not really drawn to that. But what I would say is that prior to the course, I had a lot of reasons about why that was and why it would be hard and why I didn't like it and why it was a bad idea. And you know, it looked like I had a lot of fixing and I had to get over a bunch of stuff. Like it just looked like a, you know, a huge thing to overcome. And post course, I've lightened up about all of that for sure. And been more open, and there have been possibilities. I think you said it kind of right in your first sentence, maybe, Leela, that, you know, when we get in a freer, more open mind, when we, you know, sort of get fresh, get renewed, get in real time, possibilities just show up. And for me, that was what happened. So it, you know, there were no possibilities for many years. And then, you know, post course, all of a sudden there were possibilities, and it didn't have to be online for me. So.
Lovely. Anyone else? What about you, Chetna? You're quite accomplished.
Pre-course, it's a job, and I kind of approached it almost like an interview. Really head, you know, serious, let's do this. I've got a lot of questions to get established and answers to. And then I would say post-course, fun. Yeah, that was the word that came to me, fun. I see it as an opportunity to connect with people and get to know people, and I'm quite kind of, I don't know, I've just got this cool a level of discernment now that I didn't really have, where I can kind of go, something about you. Let's talk. Yeah.
I love that. So, you know, you've dropped like most of your questions, and you're much more just going by feel.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of gone from head to heart, really. And I'm not there with a list of questions anymore, and I'm just using, I mean, you know, this is kind of most of the time. There are moments when I'll kind of go into that, and it feels very kind of easy for me to do that, but it doesn't take long for me to just come back again to this freer feeling where I'm, as I say, actually, I see it as a really fun experience to get to know people. And I kind of just find that there's an abundance that wasn't there before. And actually, the other difference I would say is that there's a nicer quality. So I used to attract people that I could say a lot about that just weren't really really weren't healthy behaviors, healthy dynamics. Whereas now I'd say, oh my goodness, where did you all come from? So that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember you kind of describing when you were showing up differently on internet dating, you know, post-program, as it felt abundant. It's kind of like, you know, before it sounded like you were trying to shop for food in a store that only sold canned food, and suddenly you're in a sort of open air market. You know, just there's lots of options and everything felt more fresh. But I think you also, didn't you say you got like just a lot more, you just had a lot more natural interaction, which is lovely.
Yeah, so I'd say that one of the things that I got from the retreat that was just so incredible for me was kind of this dropping out of my intellect, where, as I say, like it really was a job interview type process, to seeing how I basically had all of this fixed thought around my age and about how that meant that I wasn't really going to have the same opportunities as the next person, to seeing how I just basically, it all fell away, and just kind of I just saw how completely made up it was. And what that gave space for, I think, is me just being so much more present in like the conversations that I was having. And it actually meant that I was just more the real me, like really authentic now, and not afraid to like be my playful self, not afraid to also be all over the place. Like I think I'm naturally quite chaotic and just kind of, it's almost like I used to hide a part of me because I thought, oh, well, if I say that, then they may like never speak to me again. Whereas now I'm much more inclined to, I'm just not needy, so I'm just me. And if that means that they're not interested in me, then I'm okay with that.
How liberating, so much less to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, really nice. I don't know if anybody else have thoughts, internet dating? You're welcome to say hideous or not sure or didn't do it. Anybody else have any thoughts? Colette?
Yeah, I didn't do it.
There you go.
I didn't do it. So pre being on the Relationship Ready course, I just hadn't done it, and I definitely thought that I would have. I think I would have done afterwards, but as it turns out, I didn't need to. So, but yeah, no, I hadn't. But I did relax about it definitely during the whole process. And I know Paula, who's not on the course, she's literally, I mean, she's so relaxed about it. So we did it. We came and did it together, and I know she's not here, sadly, but she was, yeah. She's. I mean, she's totally good with it.
Well, she said, which I think because I hadn't done internet dating because of it wasn't a thing when I was first started dating Aaron, but so I didn't know what would be a symptom of that. It looked pretty awkward from the outside to me. I didn't have any frame of reference. So it wasn't until I started to see clients go through it and see that how much was made up about it being different. And what I love what Paula said, she says it's literally the same as walking into a bar. You're in a place, there's people there. If you feel like chatting to them, you chat to them. I was like, of course. You know, it's brilliant, brilliant.
Well, one of the things that just really resonated with me that Chetna was talking about was I definitely got so many ideas about me and, you know, why I was undateable, I suppose. And, you know, too old, definitely too old, and definitely not the right size. And, you know, was like more just, you know, successful business person. And I'd literally got like so much thinking around why I was undateable. And I just remember that first morning, Leela, you just said something to me. You said something to me, something like, well, if you showed up like, you know, boss Colette in every situation, then, you know, you might have a problem, but that's only a small part of who you are, because you know me. And I just sat there and went, oh yeah. And I literally felt it all like just go away. And so what Chetna said is just the same thing. And so I then, you know, sort of continued, and we're going to talk about that later, but I continued just with a completely different feeling too, which made, like, honestly, I know it's made the most hugest difference to my life.
I mean, that was one of the things that blew my mind. Isn't it amazing? Like I like being too successful. It turns out it's a really common thing. People who are really successful, that someone's going to be intimidated. I mean, but it's amazing, isn't it? How thought works. It will give you whatever's in front of you to say that's a reason, as opposed to it not really being a thing. And I love kind of what you're seeing in the stories is that the thoughts that look really big, like a blocker, like a roadblocker, just downgrade to the point where they're just like a penny on the road and you can drive right over them, you know?
And for me, bizarrely, I'm going to be 60 next month. I can't quite believe it, but seeing as it's March now. And I was like, so how does that work then? You know, you need to maybe date somebody who's 10 years older than you, and sort of having all this stuff going on. Guys my age don't want girls my age, they want, and actually it's just not true. It's just not true. And I was cast iron in that, Totally cast iron.
It's lovely. So good. Julia, I don't know if you have anything to contribute about internet dating or thoughts about that. I know I don't think you met your partner through internet dating, so I don't know if you have any thoughts about it.
Well, I did do it, and my words would have been apprehension and distrust, would be how I would describe it. And that was pre-course. I didn't do any internet dating after the course, which we might get to a little bit later. And like Leela, I think I've spoken with you about this, but I would read the laundry list of how people describe themselves on their profile, and then I would give them attributes based on the thinking I had about what I saw. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone, but I had a lot of thinking about kind of who they were, who they should be, and who I should be with. And I felt like I have a lot of things in all my life going really well. Why can't I fix this one thing that just seems elusive in my life, which was the fulfilling relationship, the finding somebody to really walk through life with, somebody who could, in quotes, keep up with me kind of thing, because I was kind of a fast moving target and a lot of the times, because I traveled a lot and did a lot and, like to go lots of places. And so I had just a whole bunch of thinking about like all those things. And I didn't really internet date after the course, because of course I didn't actually need to then, but that all fell away as I love the weekend, but I also think that the individual coaching sessions that I had with both you and Susan were really remarkable. I can remember I was in a plane from Berlin, and I got back on this plane from Berlin, and we would bring situations. And I remember Susan and I talking about this guy that I met in the line of the checkout, because the plane was delayed an hour or something, and you just don't have anything else to do but talk to people. And that guy still, like, I was just kind of open and not had any expectations, and that guy will still text me every once in a while, right? It's just, so I hope that makes some sense. I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah, it was interesting. I don't know if you remember that conversation we had. So I was making up a lot of it and then trying to find evidence for what I was thinking. And when I saw my thinking, that just kind of fell away. And then the real, again, some of the words other people used, this authentic or authenticity came out. And so it was much, much, much easier in a lot of areas of my life after that. So I hope, is that helpful, Leela?
It's super helpful. And the bit that I kind of resonate with it, I'm thinking, like the mistrust, that you got to, do you remember when sorry, this is going to define people remember when the internet first came out, it looked terrifying to buy something online. A lot of you are going to be too young to relate to that, but it felt like if you put your credit card in, someone was going to probably rob your entire bank. You get something you wouldn't like and you'd never be able to return it. And when you think you're making a really big decision, it can feel like that. And so when I hear a lot of people talk about trying to date online, it's that fear that you're going to buy something that you don't really want, and then you're going to be stuck with it. And then you're as opposed to now we know if you buy something, you can just change your mind. You can return it. You don't have to stick with it. Nothing's forever. You can just see if you like it, try it on at home and send it back. I mean, we're not sending people back, but you get my point. It's like this, there's no weight on it in the way that we think there is. So I really liked that you said that, because I hear that a lot. I don't know, Katie, do you have any thoughts about when I say internet dating?
Yeah, I'm glad I'm going kind of towards the end, because it took me a while to like percolate on it. I didn't do Leela's course, but I do have a nice like delineation in my head. Because my last boyfriend I broke up with in 2016, so I had like quite a long like hiatus from dating, and a lot in there. I had a lot of like aggressive thinking about how I had to be online dating, or I should be online dating. And when I was living in San Francisco, where it's like the complete norm, there was a 2-week period where I did it. I got on like 3 apps, and I found it so inflammatory to my thinking. Just like I don't think I didn't go on a single date, but it just caused me so much anxiety, like in my like life away from the app as well as on the apps. I just like couldn't tolerate it. Like it just really, really made me incredibly anxious. And so I also had some health stuff going on. I was getting my master's. I was like, I can't do this. And then it was really just like the end of last year into January where, with some like 3 principles understanding and some like not caring so much what I think understanding, and really a couple of years of practicing that, it just started to feel like intuitively like something I could do that would be fun, like to use Chetna's word. I was like, this actually sounds interesting, just to meet people and talk to people without any like heavy burden of like obligation around, like you kind of like you break it, you buy it, or like once you have it, you have to always have it, like the pressure of that. And really, again, we might talk more about it later, but I ended up meeting someone really quickly online dating in January, but there was almost a part of me that was disappointing. So I was having so much fun on the apps. Like it felt so fun without all of my like thinking about, like on both sides, like someone might send me something. I was like, wow, you're an ass. like it just like, okay. It just, even that felt like not stressful. It didn't feel personal. It just felt like, okay, that's a no. It felt really clear no. And there were just like some fun conversations, but that still felt like a clear no. It was just really like a kind of enjoyable experience with that like clarity of mind to not assign meaning to every text or assign meaning to the absence of texts or messages. So yeah, that's what I would say about it.
Quite the turnaround, painful and just sort of totally claustrophobically stressful, and then like so much fun, don't get in my way. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really fun. Even though I've met this lovely guy and we're like kind of like dating now, I almost get the urge to get on the apps just because it was so like playful and fun just to connect with people. Like I might use like the Bumble like friend setting, just to, like meet some friends through the app. So a huge turnaround for me.
That's awesome. That's brilliant. Well, I got a topic I wanted to put out to the panel. This is really, I love, and what's interesting is I kind of called, the people that were going to speak, and I learned so much from each of you just chatting with you, talking about what we were thinking of doing. And I'm learning so much just listening to you. So the topic I wanted to talk about, which is, I love this topic. So the topic I wanted to put out to the group is, and you may not or may not resonate, but I think most people have one, whether it's invisible to them or whether it's in large print, tick list. Your tick list for what you're looking for. And I want to put that out to the group because, I don't know, Susan, have we ever had someone that hasn't had one, even if it was like, oh yeah, no, I'm okay with this, but it's got to be like this. So
can't imagine. I mean, even if they didn't own up, I bet they had it.
Yeah, so we'd love to know what you guys think of tick list, and you can talk about it. What do you think of in terms of that? Did you have one? What did it look like? What did you learn about having a tick list?
How does, for those who found partners, how do they measure up compared to what they thought they wanted?
I can go on this one first because this really resonates. And Katie, I loved your laugh that came over when she said tick list. That was great. So I had a big tick list, and I had lots of friends around me that said I had to figure out what I wanted, where I'd get the book and they'd say, you need to visualize what you're trying to attract. And so, right down to the color of their socks, you should make a list, a detailed list of what you want that person to look like and try to attract that person to you. And so I had, evidence around me from the books that people gave me on trying to help me, or my friends trying to give me advice, or me trying to figure it out, that I needed a big tick list. So I'm totally hands up. I had the tick list, and I had how tall he should be, and, what kind of person he should be, and where he should live, and, just right down to all the stuff. And I'll just share that I did the class from a January to a March, and this March I'll be with my partner 4 years. So I met my partner when I was on the course, and we're now engaged, which is really exciting too. So got engaged, which just all happened, which was great. Not too much thinking about it. And the guy that I am now engaged to couldn't be more opposite to my tick list. Like I see Susan smiling, but he's not as tall or taller than me. And he stood on his tippy toes for months, you know, when he would give me a hug or a kiss. It's really quite funny, the joke between us. And, you know, I thought that I needed this tall European. Well, and he's British, which is nothing wrong with that, but he's British. And he's a Northerner. And like he is been divorced twice and has kids. And so that wasn't really what I was kind of bargaining for either, and was going through a divorce at the time. And I told myself, oh, I'm not interested in dating you. You have to go figure it all out. You're not going to be ready, all those kind of things. I had a lot of thinking about that. And so I thought that he'd need to take like a year to figure it out for himself. And obviously that wasn't the case in this situation. So I had lots of thinking about everything down to the color of his socks and what I thought I should have, and who I fell in love with couldn't be more different. And also how it happened couldn't have been more different. So all the thinking I had about who he should be and how he should look and what he should do and how it's going to happen was just all made up and causing me more stress and strain than what was really just taking one day at a time and being open and curious and letting things reveal and happen as they're going to. Is that what you're talking about, Leela?
Yeah.
I so relate to that.
No, I know. And I love it, because part of one of the intakes we do when we're doing our program is we ask people, well, what are you looking for? What's your ideal? And we get a tick list, you know. And I've learned a lot about tick lists. I've kind of started to see that there's something behind a tick list, which is that people don't want to make a mistake like they have before, and they want to be safe, you know, and they want to be successful in their efforts, you know, they want their efforts to pay off, because usually people have been trying. But what was lovely when we were chatting about tick lists the other day is, you know, the ideas were all good ideas on paper, but they actually were nothing to do with what you actually got that meant something. So I think, you know, you were talking about, you just didn't have any of the emotional qualities like feeling, you know, affection or all of those. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I had more of the physicality things and the things that I thought at the time were important, but I didn't have the things that I think are really the meaningful things when you get into a loving, caring relationship. So like one of the things, like the small things that wasn't on the list was that he lets me go first, right? Which is just kind of a nice, courteous, chivalrous thing to do. But like he carries heavy things for me. He is thinking about me at the same time he's thinking about himself. Like I just didn't have any of that kindness and consideration and, you know, putting me equal or in front of him or somebody like taking care of me. I didn't think about those intangible attributes. I only thought about the physicality of where he should work or what he should do or how he should, you know, how he should look. And so again, I said a little bit about this with internet dating, but I gave attributes to people that didn't have them through my thinking. But then I didn't see some of the things that were like were really there or really obvious because my thinking was layered on. So I didn't see the real thing, if that makes sense. So I think the intangible stuff was the important thing, and that wasn't on my tick list. And that's the things I think that have really surprised me being in this really kind of great loving relationship is we're kind of growing together, but it's the little things, which maybe you hear this, maybe you don't, but it's the little things that the kind consideration, that, you know, putting the toothpaste on the toothbrush for me because he knows I'm going to brush my teeth kind of thing. That's little stuff, which I think sounds silly, but it's sometimes romantic. So I don't know, does that help?
Yeah, it's lovely. I don't know if you have any thoughts, Susan, because you know Julia very well too. Is there anything?
I do. Remember her very well from when I first met her. And there's this, I love that I'm nodding away because I think that is the gold dust in relationship, that kind of like, you know, I remember being in relationships where I wanted them to be more considerate of me. And it was almost like a kind of bargaining thing. Like I would try and make those things happen. And it's it's just so lovely when it happens just very naturally because of the way you're both showing up, that why wouldn't you want to be considerate of each other? And it's not something you're demanding or asking, but it's just showing up because of the way that you are together. And what sort of strikes me from hearing, you know, all of the women who shared so far is like there's this lovely softness that's showing up that perhaps you didn't all feel within yourselves, perhaps at the beginning of the course. There's this, the way you talk about your loving relationships or what you're seeing for all of you, there's a lovely softness, which is, it's like, it's not a to-do, oh, go be soft, but it's just something that I guess when you weren't trying to control everything or trying to make things happen, that kind of showed up instead. And it's something that immediately is attractive to others, like meeting the guy in the queue who just wanted to have a chat or whatever it is. So yeah, that's what I've been hearing so far.
And I think what's one of the bits I remember you telling me, Julia, was that your mind wanted to jump ahead in your mind about him and try and kind of fit him into, and then you were like, well, I like being with him. And didn't you have a friendship for a while? Like you just enjoyed his company. So you didn't, you let go and saw where it went, which is so easy to miss when our head is jumping ahead. Like we have just this pony. I used to have a pony on the farm that always wanted to be in the front, so it'd push the other horses out of the way. Like it wants to be, and my mind can get like that. It wants to know where something's going and what's this about, as opposed to slowing down. And I really remember you telling me, oh, I'm going to slow down. I'm just going to be, and it would just, it allowed the organic nature to happen. So there's no weighty decision to make because it just was natural. It's really nice.
And it also goes back to that being in business and having the demanding schedule and having to try to manage your time and control things, to just kind of relaxing and letting things happen and letting that softness come through, which doesn't mean you're weak. So I think there's lots of kind of dichotomies about the softness and being able to be soft in a relationship, but that doesn't make you weak or vulnerable in a bad way. It's in a good way, if that makes sense. So yeah.
We've got a topic I'm going to raise in a minute that's going to cover that. I'm so excited. Who else, does anybody else feel like, who wants to say something? Anyone else got like, ooh, I've got something to say about tick lists? Anybody else on the panel? Does anyone not have a tick list? Katie, didn't have one.
Well, I was thinking about how I've never had an explicit tick list, but I've definitely had like a very internalized, ingrained idea of type, like my type. And I'm not, this guy I'm dating is not my type. And sometimes I look at him and it's just like this funny, like, really? Like you? So it is very different from what I expected. I never like, Julia, I hear like lots of my friends, like you have to manifest it, you have to write it down, you have to think about it, positive thinking, and I hate all that stuff. But I did just have this idea of what my type was, and it just is not what I ended up with at all. So it is interesting how that happens.
Me too. I completely resonate with that. It's not my type either, the guy, but he's lovely.
So nuts is how many people will say, like, I mean, and this has been my experience of this program. I don't know if it's 99%. It's really high. Like how many people say, I never would have picked them, but I feel more connected than I ever have before. So how much is our head kind of interrupting our intuition when we're trying to sort of figure it out all the time? Whereas it turns out our intuition and our feel for things, like who is it earlier who said, I just felt right. And, you know, like how much more intelligent when you're getting a feel for things rather than trying to suss it all out, because they don't match up. They don't match up. I think I wrote a tick list when I was in like my early 20s, or no, late teens. And I think everything on there was just things that were the opposite of my previous boyfriend, you know? Oh, I don't want him to be like this and do this kind of thing and be into that, because I was just didn't want to have that experience again, as opposed to you know, it was a reaction to a bad experience. Yeah.
I mean, I think they kind of stop you getting to know someone in a way, because, you know, if you go on a date and you've got your tick list and they start answering the questions wrong for your tick list, you sort of like, you start dismissing and you don't really get to see who's in front of you and just see. So, and it's so lovely that when it's a bit like liking a food that you thought you never would like because you don't like the look of it, and then you put it in your mouth and you're actually, oh my God, that's nice. That also happened to me when I tasted sweet corn when I was 18. I thought, oh my God, that's good. But it's a bit like that. It's like, it's lovely being surprised that you enjoy things you didn't know you were going to enjoy.
I can say a bit more on that, actually. I had a relationship with an Italian guy and it didn't go well. And then I basically ruled out all Italians. Then I had a relationship with a Spanish guy and then I ruled out all Spanish guys. And then I had a date that went really badly with a French guy. And it was so funny how I was actually bringing that to the new people that I was meeting. And then I totally had a list, and there were acceptable careers and then there were unacceptable careers. It's really embarrassing to admit this, actually, and say it out loud. But yeah, I completely resonate with it. And the guy that is on my mind right now and I'm talking to is 6'4", and that's just like totally ridiculous because I'm really petite, and I would have ruled him out from the get-go because he's just too tall for me. So that's also quite funny.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I really feel like the tick list isn't because you're superficial or like a bad person. Your tick list, the drive to create one is a drive to have safety, security, and try and create something that's going to work. I don't think we create those because we're superficial. I think we try and create them because we want to be successful for whatever we think that's going to be, make us successful or make us feel safe or make us feel comfortable. So why would we choose someone from a certain career? So we can be comfortable. Why would we choose someone a certain height? So we can be comfortable. But if you stop looking for those things to be comfortable, then that allows you to sort of open up to what's in front of you. Yeah. I think, Colette, you shared something the other day about kind of what this did for you was able to feel things in front of you and follow chemistry or something like that, where you were able to see what was in front of you and follow things more naturally rather than jumping to conclusions in your mind.
Oh, for sure, because the truth is that I did this course, I think maybe the year after Julia, so 3 or 4 years ago, but the year after, so it started in January and finished in March or April, and actually my partner now, we were talking. He was just embarking on a divorce, and he was giving me all these signals, and it was one of my one-to-ones with Leela, and honestly, I didn't even notice. I mean, I didn't even notice, and she pointed some things out to me. And I was just completely ignoring the whole kind of signal of him completely. And not actually, because I don't know if I had a tick list or not. I've got no idea. I didn't even think it was on the cards. So I hadn't even got to that stage of deciding whoever it was, what they were going to look like. But actually, it was really fascinating for me just being myself, I mean, lots of people have talked about that, just being yourself, being authentic, whatever that kind of means. But, whether grumpy or happy or, boss lady or whatever you are in that moment, just doing that and showing up, just what a difference. What a difference it made. And I think what Julia said about those intangible things, I mean, it sounds just so like, duh, yeah, absolutely. But I wouldn't have thought about it like that either. And those are the things that make an amazing relationship. And when your thinking drops away about what the person should be like or what they should be doing or whatever it is, do you know, I find it incredible. It is, like Susan said, it's magical. It's actually magical.
Yeah, and it shows you we get invisible thought, which just kind of blinds us a little bit to being more present. So we're on the phone with Colette and I'm like, that dude's into you. She's like, no, he's not. I said, the dude, I'm pretty sure he's into you. She brushed me off like 2 times. I said, Colette, I kind of trusted my instinct on this. I think that dude's into you. I mean, I hadn't met him. She didn't even say anything like particularly significant. I just get this vibe. I'm like, I think the dude's into you. She's like, no, because it just shows you, you know, if you're kind of like one of those horses with those blinders on, so they just go straight. If you just you miss what's in front of you. And so lovely. So I got the next topic. I like this one. It's a really, I think it's a big deal. And the next topic is bully proof. And it sounds like an odd thing to say, but it's very, very common for us to meet people that are going in who have either been hurt or have had to try and be a very weird version of themselves. So Colette's starting to touch on that subject there, like just to be herself, just to be grumpy, be happy, be anything. And I wanted to raise this as a topic because I think a lot of time, most of us have come in, have been in a relationship where they've been a very weird version of themselves, or done things that they wouldn't have done in their right mind because they were trying to please someone or be a good person, or, you know, they kind of some idea that they made up other than just themselves in the moment. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what does it mean to be yourself? Does the panel have any stories about what do you think of when I say bully proof? You know, what does that mean? I mean, maybe that's the wrong word to use, but I've seen evidence of it in the people that have kind of worked with us, that there's something that happens where they stop double guessing themselves. And I wanted to open that up as a topic because I think it's quite prevalent for a lot of people going out and dating and being in a relationship as well.
I'm just going to say, Leela is saying, I'm going to translate now.
Thank you.
She's saying bully proof, not bulletproof, in case any of you heard bulletproof. So like bully proof, meaning, do you know what it means? Then, you know, I suppose adapting yourself or feeling like you have to be someone else other than you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, or like not doing
you lose yourself.
Yeah, not doing things that don't make sense to you, being able to find your voice within the relationship so that you're not double guessing yourself and you're not getting kind of railroaded within it because you feel more centered than that. And what that might have looked like before, what does it look like now? I just think it's a really, I think it's quite a meaningful topic to see if the panel have discovered things about themselves, about finding their voice, about trusting themselves.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about that. Bob?
Yeah, I see Ian has his hand up too, but I'll go first. And then, you know, one of the things I just want to start by sharing that in the first weekend of the program, I don't remember the topic, but at some point you kind of went around and had everybody share their perspective on relationship, themselves in relationship. And I went and everyone else went, and then we took a break, and I was outside and we were at my house. And so I think I went to water the plants or something. And I realized watering the plants, I'm like, wow, nothing I said was fresh. Everything I said was old, like old thinking, like so familiar, so old. And I just had this moment like, wow, wonder what I think about myself in relationship today. You know, that I was living in the memory of myself in relationship the memory of my, you know, old ideas about relationship. And I just got really curious about what would be fresh, you know, and kind of listening today or listening at that point. And that theme continues to, you know, kind of show up. And that's how I would say it's, I want to fall back into old ideas, the past, you know, when I've had the opportunity to be with somebody and to date and to be in relationship since the course. I think one of the biggest things I've seen is, for me, a coping mechanism wasn't a list about somebody. A coping mechanism was me managing, you know, like kind of bringing my strategy and trying to manage myself, manage him, manage what the relationship was, constantly wanting to define it, to put it in a certain box so I could feel settled in myself about it. And really the opportunity for me is realizing, oh wait, I can, like, it might have been Leela or Susan or one of you at some point said to me, you know, Barb, relationships aren't strategic. And I was like, what? You know, you don't want to treat them like a client or a project, or the relationship like a thing that needs, you know, your strategy and your thinking. And it was so funny because, of course, as soon as they said that, I was like, I saw myself, I saw what I was doing. But similar to what you're saying, when I realized, oh, I'm okay in the unknown, that in a way, that's what I'm learning to get more and more okay with in relationship. When I'm okay in the unknown, I just show up more real in that moment. I'm not worried about where it's going. I'm not as worried about how I need to be showing up. And am I in or am I out? Do I like him? Do I not like him? Is this going to work? Is it not? You know, like my mind just constantly wants to define it and figure things out. But I'm enjoying more and more the just letting the connection, letting the life be there or not there, you know, knowing that at times I just get insecure, you know, and other times I'm not, you know, sometimes I overthink, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I really question, you know, if this is a good idea, and other times I'm so grateful for it. So it's just really getting comfortable in my own skin with the full range. And part of that happens, you know, when I catch myself thinking it needs my management. I just know I'm just unsettled, you know, and I can just come back and fall into the unknown.
Thank you. What about the rest of you guys? Maybe bulletproof is, did I say bulletproof again? Bullyproof. Or like finding your voice or trusting yourself within your relationship. But has anyone got any thoughts or stories?
I have, Leela.
Yeah.
I have. I think that, you know, I'd been married for 25 years and I just kind of learned to tuck in, I think, and just kind of get my head down and get on with it. And, you know, then I've been on my own for 10 years. 10 years, but maybe 8 years. And I think that I thought I had to be a certain way to get along and to make things work, because just that's the way it happened. And so every time I was kind of more myself, it just kind of seemed to get me in all kinds of trouble. So actually, this is a whole new kind of way of being for me. And I remember saying, actually, that first weekend, that there was like two parts to my thinking. One was sort of what I was like, and you know, what I looking for someone, and the other part was definitely about how I would then be in a relationship. And I know that in my past relationships, I could get really grumpy about things like really quickly, and I didn't like that person that I was in it, if that makes sense. Whereas now it wouldn't make sense for me to be like that at all. And I think it was a turning point for me. It was a conversation and the one-to-ones with Susan when we talked about goodwill between us. And Susan knows my daughter. I've got 2 children, but she knows my daughter, and she talked to me about the goodwill I had for Andrina and the, you know, the way that we would be together in the world and you know, maybe annoy each other, but it wasn't like a thing. It just kind of was that, and then it was back to you know, it was like a boat, it just righted itself. And I so could see that. And that helps me all the time, because I know that if I'm tired or I'm a bit grumpy or to be fair, in this house, it's like everybody needs to eat, but I know I can hear the words coming out of my mouth in a way that I don't really want them to be. And now I go, oh, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean that. I just need to have a piece of toast, right? And in fact, he's so fab, he just like makes me a piece of toast. And so I think that I never realized you could just be yourself. Like you could really just be yourself. I never realized that was even a thing. And that's been, honestly, that's just, it's a revelation for me. It's just an absolute revelation. And then some more of the nice parts of me show up, like more often.
Well, that's really lovely. And Lily, you disappeared, and there was pictures of mountains. But yeah, that's lovely hearing you speaking about that, Colette, and how, you know, there's just about when we're ourselves. It's amazing how it's like almost like sometimes we're not ourselves because we think it's an unacceptable thing to be ourselves and just reveal ourselves. But what's surprising is the more ourselves we are, the more people accept us as ourselves. And that's always surprising to me, even now when I'm being, you know, what I would see as difficult or, you know, not in a great mood or something, and I just get, and I'm received with love. It's like, oh, you can be like that too, and it's okay. And it's like the more ourselves we are, in a way, it shows you that hiding in a way makes us more vulnerable. Whereas we think revealing ourselves is what makes us more vulnerable, but oddly it's the opposite.
It is the opposite, yeah, for sure. So that was, I mean, that was a game changer for me, and you know, my life's been completely different actually since. So thank you for that.
Okay.
It's lovely. I mean, none of us don't have quirks and frailties and moods, none of us. And actually, nobody really, if you think about when you fall in love with someone, it's not a flat version of them. You fall in love with the quirks and the bumps of them. So why would you hide that from someone else? Because then they miss out. Julia, I remember when you were navigating like the first year, I really saw, because one of the things, and I think one of the things that we can want to do when we're trying to be successful is kind of manage everything, like Barb was saying, project manage a relationship. And as I listened to you when you were navigating, kind of getting settled in this relationship, I could see you soften, but not double guess yourself. So if some stage or choice within kind of your coupling of, you know, how fast to take things, if it didn't feel right to you, you were really certain, really clear, but really soft, but unmovable. And it really impacted me. Like it really struck me because, you know, because you're so capable. When I first met you, you would direct me. You were kind of always helping me and have you tried this green juice and this book is amazing. And it's like you backed off any project managing, and I could feel you just trust yourself. And because there was no conflict inside about whether you could trust yourself, it like the whole feeling of you was so utterly soft. But if it didn't feel right, he's like, do not pass go until I feel okay, until that's right, you know. And that was something I really saw in you. I don't know if you have anything kind of you would add to that.
Well, I think I think once I got kind of settled, my mind settled, I would kind of listen for that intuition, that truth, that kind of impersonal knowing versus the kind of the personal thinking. And when it felt that way, then I would just like, you know, I guess I would hold my ground, if you would. And that's continued in our relationship, not just the first year, but also subsequent years. Because he's looking in the door, because he shut it now. He has a lot of hobbies. So he's into watches, and he's into cars, and he's into wines and all these things. And when something feels right, I'm not coming into the relationship to change him, because he's already fully formed, and I love him for who he is. But also it had to match my value system. And so I'm just going to talk very personally for a moment, but you know, on money and investment, I'm more of a saver, he's more of a spender. And when we need to have conversations about that, I wasn't a pushover just because I wanted him to like me. I was like, no, this is what's right for me, kind of thing. So I don't know, I just feel like I found my voice, but not in a bossy or mean way, in a here's what's right for me and here's what's right for me, and can we have this conversation? And then he would see that and we'd come together. So I think we both changed, but not for each other. We changed for the better, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but does that make sense when I say that?
Yeah.
I'm trying to describe something that again is a bit intangible, but I don't think I've ever been like, I listen to it and he gets excitable and he wants to do this or that or this or that, but then I'm like, feel what's right, and then I go with what the right thing is, and I have the kind of the words to help explain why I think that's right, and he stops and he listens. It's really kind of a nice combination, speaking to that not getting pushed around in the relationship.
But the softness of you and the trusting of yourself was just quite extraordinary. Because we think of capable as powerful and controlling, but I saw this soft capability that is way stronger than any project managing or powering through or figuring it out than anybody could ever have. And it really addresses the idea, well, I think if you look at most tips or how to resolve things, they kind of suggest you find someone that has the same ideas about life. Oh, you have to find a version, the same, like the identical copy of you. I would hate to be married to me. You know, the reason why I like being married to someone is someone's different than me. Thank God, you know, but that addresses, you don't have to have someone that has the same ideas. You just have to be able to know what spirit to be able to kind of approach it in. Because you can still have different ideas. It doesn't mean you're changing. He's fully formed, you're fully formed. But to be able to work that out beautifully because you know how to show up with that, I think is quite an important thing to consider.
And I also think that you know, he has lots of things he's really into, and he gets really into the research and all that. And I love to see that passion. He brings that passion to his life. And so even when we were in, you know, courting each other, and now when we're in the relationship, I don't have a lot of thinking. I'm like, just let him do that thing. That's fine. You just go do your thing. But then when it comes to like a big decision about finance or whatever, we sit and stop and talk about it. And it's, I don't know, I just let my wisdom guide me, which sounds really weird, but it comes through and it makes sense for me. And I also, when I say it, it makes sense for him. And then we're okay with it. So I hope that makes sense, because it feels very intangible again, but I hope that can make sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can really feel that. It's that kind of that difference between when you know something and when you're just thinking about all the different options it could be.
Yeah, lovely. I don't know if anybody else wants to contribute on that topic.
It'd also be, I just want to make sure we've got time in case anybody has any questions for our panel, that we don't run out.
Should we get people to put them in the chat if we have any questions?
Yeah, if you've got any questions, and you can ask anything, because I'm not answering it.
We'll put them in the chat. We probably the easiest thing. Does everyone know how to use the chat? I don't know. An hour and a half goes really fast. This happens every time. I kind of thought it'd be really fun to ask a final question, which can be really individual. So for the panel, what's been the most meaningful, surprising thing that you've learned from working with us that kind of just, and you might have already said it, it doesn't matter.
I think mine will be to stop telling myself stories. So I'm very guilty of that. And then I think it was Julia said it as well. Something, or maybe, sorry, it was Katie, about the absence of messages and what does that mean? And I'll tell myself a whole story, and before I know it, I've like written the whole thing off. And then like 2 hours later, it's like, I'm so sorry, I was at dinner. And I'm like, I hate you. I mean, I would do all these crazy things. And I just learned that everything is, you just have to be relaxed and stop telling yourself stories. So for me, that's the biggest thing. And I have applied that to my everyday life, whether that be friends, business, work, any of that. It just really helps.
I love that.
Lovely.
Oh, Leela.
Yes.
Well, the biggest thing I learned from doing Relationship Ready was that love is kind. And that really has made a huge difference. You know, it's not, it just, I don't know what I thought it was before. I've got no idea, or, you know, this kind of romantic or relationship, but that's been the biggest thing for me, that it's kind, and it's that kindness and that feeling between us that's really the most important thing. It feels, anyway, to me. And there's a real sense of when it's there and when it's going away, and so, you know, and how to navigate through that. But that feeling between us is just the thing I think that I've learned, that sort of real kindness.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Katie?
Yeah. It's hard. I feel like I had so many really lovely revelations in my one-on-ones with Leela. The one that like really sticks with me and still gets me every time I'm hanging out with this new partner is how like none of the chats that I've had with Leela and none of the explorations I've had with myself around this like different kind of mindset or paradigm. It's like it's never ever about like sanding away the rough edges or making the relationship perfect or fixing anything about me or fixing anything about him. It still like rocks my world that I can be grumpy and he can be grumpy, and it's completely, I want to swear, but I want to use the F word. It's completely effing okay. Like it's completely okay. Like the freedom, it's like really hard to describe after so many years of just analyzing myself into oblivion and analyzing every fucking human interaction into oblivion. It's like, holy moly, I can be with this person and be as I am, like be my complete self. To echo a lot of the sentiment from the call, it's still like settling into my system. It's not like, it feels very fresh still. It feels fresh when I'm on my own in the world, and exceptionally fresh with him. Like to be that way with a partner is very, very new to me, and I'm more playful and more happy, and there are fewer rough edges when I know that they're okay to be there. So that's like a big life changer for me.
Oh, it's lovely. Lovely to hear. God, it's a relief when we stop analysing ourselves to death, isn't it? It's a weight off.
I don't know if Julia or Chetna or Barb want to. If you have anything, you may not want to have anything to add at this point.
I can share that I just really resonate with what other people have been sharing. And there were so many juicy insights from working with you guys. I would say that one of the things that, and what's also weird is that I'd been in the principals conversation for a while, and yet like this was totally new in my head, that I'm only ever needing to look at me and where I'm at. And it was just so like it was always so, it still is sometimes so compelling for me to look at them and try and work out what's going on in their head. And then it was like, oh, like this only ever me. Even when I'm feeling gorgeous about somebody, it's me. When I'm feeling crap about someone, it's me. And seeing that and knowing that I have everything I want inside of me was a game changer, because suddenly I just wasn't needy. And that just, yeah, it's massively impacted on how I show up with everyone. So thank you.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, I agree with Chet, and I could relate to what everyone is really saying, and could echo all of it. And I think the only thing I'll add is I didn't really know what I wanted. I had an idea, but what I've come to see is I have a wider range than I thought. You know, that what I thought mattered doesn't really matter. That what I thought relationships should look like, I don't really care. You know, there are some things in this recent one that, based on where he is in his life and other things, you know, it hasn't quite looked the way I thought it would look in my head. And then to really discover, I don't really care, just, you know, enjoying it. So it's been nice to just be with what's present and what's alive and in the moment and what feels right, and knowing that it changes. But that's been lovely.
Great.
Yes, I'll just say one last thing. Like when I thought it looked really hard or impossible, once I saw it was my thinking, it wasn't. So I think I made things a lot harder than they were. And when I was just relaxed, and I'll use Susan's word, softer, it just all worked out. And so it's that kind of almost quiet confidence about that it'll be okay, and I don't have to do anything for it to be okay, because I have been always a real doer. And so to see that and then trust it and then keep going back to that, it's going to be okay, I don't have to do anything, that was a real kind of game changer.
You know, that's one of the things we didn't know when we first did this, is we knew it would help people get comfortable dating and be themselves and start out. We had no idea it was going to help people continue being themselves within one. We didn't know. It was lovely to see that you're still going back to the same principle within yourself. And I think everyone I spoke to the other day, because I think we go back 4 or 5 years, have kept, I don't know whether you would say growing, deepening, softening. It's continued. I don't think there's a single person that's been static. Like I was speaking to Barb the other day, and Barb is so nice to people and so sweet. And I could hear this voice in her that was just really clear. If she doesn't want something, she'll say it. Like I can see she's saying it within the most recent experience of relationship. And I just was like, it's like her voice has come through, and it's like I feel like I got to know her even more deeply through her getting deeper and more comfortable with her voice. And sometimes that's saying, I don't want this and I do want that, as opposed to, you know, doing what we think we should be doing. And it's just, we're both really, really inspired by all of you. We're just so grateful that you've worked with us, because you get us out of bed in the morning. One way of saying it. Really.
And yeah, thank you all for showing up and sharing where you're at, and it's lovely hearing where you're all at and seeing you all again, and it's been really lovely reconnecting again. Thank you, and thank you to everybody who showed up this evening. Hope it's been useful.
Would we do, Susan, do you want to mention a little bit about we have a retreat. The next retreat starts in a couple of weeks. We have a couple of spaces. If people get interested, they can email us. Do you want to share a little bit about it?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's over 2 days. It's the weekend of March 13th and 14th. And on a kind of practical way, it runs sort of around 3 till 8, something like that. So you still got kind of quite a bit of the day. You can go out, get fresh air, have a walk, be with your family or friends if you want to be. And then what else can I tell you? We'll be over that weekend. We'll be sharing what we've seen that has, well, for me, has transformed how I show up in relationship. And you know, a bit like what sort of Julia was alluding to, it's kind of this, it's so much of a feeling of knowing what feels right or what doesn't feel right, and you kind of do this kind of dance where you know which way to go and what to pull away from. And it's, so we'll be sharing what we've seen. And yeah, it would be lovely to have any of you here on with us. We'd love that. And yeah, what else? Would you like to say something else about it, Leela?
No, I think if anyone's interested, they should let us know. We have a 15% off discount for anybody who registered for the call. If they want to take advantage of that, we'll send an email out and they can get back to us about that.
Lovely.
Yeah, but you don't need to worry. We won't just throw you on the call. We'll speak to you before the weekend happens. And yeah, I can't thank you enough. That was I'm so sorry we didn't have enough time for questions, but I really liked that we had some space just to hear what people were reflecting on. So it was, I feel like it was nice that it was unrushed. So maybe we'll do another one sometime and have more time for questions. Thank you so much. Almost finished on time here.
Yeah, you've done well.
Great to see everyone.
Thank you.
Enjoy the course.
Nice to see you guys. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.